Thank you so much for coming. This workshop has exceeded my wildest expectations. We did not actually know if it was going to work when we started organizing it. This is very experimental. So why did we make this workshop? I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I feel like we don't even know what situation we're in right now. And a lot of people have been trying to plan for the future without, in my mind, doing the very first basic step, which is asking, what are we aiming for? What could we aim for? We don't know if we're just in the situation of building this sort of tiger cub that might be more powerful than us someday. Or maybe like slightly spicier, we might be in situations of like natives seeing the like first ships on the horizon and trying to figure out what to do about it and what maybe the end game is going to be. In particular, the reason that we, I think, have to start thinking about this now is because humans might lose agency for a number of reasons. And we probably will need more coordination going forward than usual. Partly, I think, because civilization might just need us less than it has in the past. Having a better set of plausible trajectories or maps of what's possible should help us plan and coordinate. And as just a thought experiment, we can ask, like, what if the, again, like American natives had all been able to fairly clearly see what the like different possible endgames were? They might have been able to coordinate like a very different equilibrium in the end. I mean, I think like a bunch of you, I got worried about these questions and said, okay, let's work on AI safety. And the sort of most of the technical agenda there obviously has been, let's figure out the technical problem of aligning individual systems and trying to build threat models and like what are the ways that this kind of alignment of a single agent could go wrong. But the point of this workshop is to answer this, I think, pretty central question that I don't know if you guys were bothered by this, but I was very bothered by people not having an answer for, well, okay, what if we succeed? What if we do build these aligned AGIs? What kind of situation are we going to be in going forward? And how do these aligned AGIs end up in charge of the world? That seems like a big missing part of the plan. So the goals of the workshop, in our view, are, number one, just to clarify what claims people are making and could make. So for instance, I just said, hey, we might lose influence. Like, who is we? What does it mean for us to even act as a collective or be able to avoid something as a collective? This is something that I think we don't have a good vocabulary for right now. Obviously, trying to figure out what are the plausible outcomes we could be aiming for. And like in particular, do we think that there are major attractors that are somewhat stable in the space of like possible future civilizations? And then also to try to map out obstacles to steering. So there's, I think, a bunch of reasons to think that it might be harder than we think to actually steer a civilization for a whole bunch of reasons. And then just socially, for us to figure out what are the other people who recognize the importance of these problems, actually thinking about it, how are they framing it, what are they working on? So in particular, we hope that you guys all start a lot of new collaborations here, connecting fields that have different tools to provide to answer these questions. Legitimize the area. I feel like half the time I'm sending emails, my former colleagues are like, oh, David's gone a little nuts. And I think that they're right to be worried. And so I think by trying to, again, like clarify the claims, break down the problem into like smaller chunks, this is going to give handholds for other people to say, well, maybe I don't haven't gone off the deep end, but I do think there's like these interesting sub-questions. And we also want to, I think, support junior scholars. I think there's a lot of young people who do kind of see the outline of this huge problem and don't know what to do about it, and in particular, don't know how they're going to get paid to think about these things. And of course, again, let's try to, again, do all of this in a sort of purposeful way, in a way that we think will actually ultimately end up helping us steer towards a better future. So, there we go. I think we're going to have a pretty light touch in terms of what you guys are going to talk about today, certainly in the breakout sessions. But here's some suggestions we have for how this might be more productive. So one is, please, just for the purposes of today, just assume that AGI is possible. And maybe we'll be fine just by default, but we're going to worry about sort of the hard version of the problem. And think big about what maybe the most ambitious or most problematic agents in the future are going to be doing with all of our their new power, right? Like, are the future billionaires going to build baby factories? Are the future AIs going to demand rights? Like whatever might go wrong, please just don't assume that nothing ever happens. And again, also I say be purposeful, but also please feel free to follow your curiosity and your gut about what is an interesting thread. In particular, I want to establish the norm for today, that it is absolutely okay and not actually rude to just silently peace out of a conversation that is not serving you for whatever reason. We don't actually have time for us to go through the niceties of wait for the person to stop speaking and then say, I'm sorry, I'm going to go run over here for some reason. Just turn around, you're totally fine, you're free. One thing that I've had trouble with starting to think about these issues is that I have a bunch of cache heuristics of like, I don't know, competition good, free markets good, something like that. And when someone starts to bring in labels of stuff that to me, I've like have this long, a whole bunch of heuristics saying that this doesn't work or this other thing does work better. I think the hard part, the reason that this field is hard to do good work in is because so many mechanisms of like power and growth and change are going to actually change the way they work. And we have to actually do this much harder version of reasoning from first principles, like sort of almost everywhere. So please stop and ask yourself, why am I so sure that this is going to work out in the long run? There are a bunch of conversational black holes that we've run into, like when we give a talk, and then people in the audience start fighting about something that could last like 45 minutes. So everything is in scope here, but please just note if you happen to be, for instance, arguing about values and like which machines will deserve rights or something like that. Please, feel free to stop and say, hey, whoops, I think we're in a black hole. We might spend a long time on this. Concretely, one thing you can do is reframe every question of values into a question of what will people be able to be convinced of, right? So it's like not like talking about whether AI deserves rights, obviously in scope, because we kind of need to know what we want to aim for. But I think maybe you can just reframe that as, will they be able to convince people that they deserve rights? Something like that. Please don't mention US politics, just like if you've probably gone off the wrong direction. And to some extent, I think AGI timelines is something that we all have a lot of thoughts about, but is probably not relevant for a lot of the questions. Obviously, again, everything's in scope, I'm not sure. Just note that these are the classic ways that people waste half an hour when discussing these issues. So what we're also ultimately hoping for at this stage, again, it's like super early days, is just sort of practice building a more gears level understanding of how things work. So, trying to think in terms of like what are the main mechanisms operating in an area that make outcomes the way they are, and hopefully that will generalize to new situations. Obviously, we have to use our intuitions, but like I think the classic exercise we will be doing today is saying like, wait, but why am I so sure that, or why do I have this intuition that things are going to work this way?